Caroline, because what we're going to be talking about today is showing up authentically in your practice. And whether your practice is personal or whether it's professional, it's really about coming to your practice with your heart and showing up authentically. And so I loved that you shared that, Caroline, about how you showed up today authentically sharing that, because what it comes down to is that we're all people and we all have things in life that happen. And how do you navigate your world? How do you navigate your practice? How do you navigate your business with all of that, with the real life things that occur for you and in this world? And Reiki is, what did I say earlier, Colleen? Reiki is a heart, no pun intended, with your picture of the heart in the olive oil and guiding your cooking. Reiki is a heart-driven practice in general. And so it is one of those things that we all come to with our hearts. And sometimes that can be more challenging. Sometimes that's easier. Sometimes life is hard. Sometimes we're flowing in an easier cycle. But it is about how do you show up authentically through all of it. And so it's interesting because, for us, we have our personal practices. We have our personal Reiki practice for ourselves. We have our personal Reiki practice and how we live it in our life. But then we also have a Reiki business. So there is a piece of this with that. So how do we show up authentically in both, but also specifically in our business? So with this, Colleen and I and Danny and us at Reiki Lifestyle, we always spend time in Reiki and come up with kind of a monthly structure of what we're going to be talking about in our Reiki topics and different topics within that monthly structure. So, and we always go into Reiki, listen to Reiki about what it's guiding us to do. And generally words aren't very hard for us. I don't know if you've noticed, but words generally come easy to us. And so topics also generally come easy to us. But this morning, and normally we meet way ahead of time, and we talked about it yesterday, and we've been listening about what we're going to be talking about today. And what's really interesting is that we were both just kind of blank. And normally we do it ahead of time, and we have not an outline, but just like a loose structure of what we're going to talk about, and then whatever channels through. We've just been blank on today's topic. For the last few weeks, Colleen has been in Karama energy, and we've been talking about that, but I know it's also been channeled through what's come through from her. And then I've been in different appointments for the last couple of weeks. And so it just, this month has just been kind of what shows up, which is okay too, because we love that part of it and that when that happens. But then as we've been trying to listen for a topic for today, as she's kind of, feels like she's a little bit complete with the specific Karama topics, it was like nothing came through. We're like, this is very strange for us. We're not used to this. But then when we were talking about it this morning, it just kind of came through of like, well, why don't we just be honest about that? Like, why don't we share that it has, this time today has been a little more challenging as far as what has been, what topic we want to talk about. We have what we want to talk about next month, but we couldn't figure out today. And so like, why don't we just be honest that like, okay, it didn't come through for us. And that's okay. And then what we talked about is like, Oh, well, there's the topic, showing up authentically today, because it's not always the case that you have everything put together in your Reiki practice. Sometimes you have things going on in your life that make that process more challenging. And other times it flows really easily and it's no problem. Um, but to know that that's completely normal and that's okay. And truth be told, we Colleen's been super busy. She hasn't really stopped since she got back from Mount Karama. And for somebody that was asking in the chat, she was in Japan. Mount Karama is where Yusui Sensei received Reiki. If you haven't been here in the last few weeks, where Yusui Sensei received Reiki, and she was teaching on Mount Karama with William Rand. They taught a master and a Karuna class.
And quite a few of the people that were in that class with us are also here. So Caroline is one of them. And yeah, there's quite a few here.
Yeah. And so, and that was really what Ben wanted to talk about, because we do always kind of allow Reiki to guide us, and the way it all kind of lined up. Then the fact that this is what showed up is that that it is important in these things, in our practices, to just show up authentically, to be honest, because other people might be going through the same thing. So we've been really busy since Colleen got back. She's been teaching a lot. I've been teaching a lot. It's just been a busy time frame, and to give ourselves grace around that. To give ourselves grace is that's just what's been happening for us. And then also we finally have this next few days, like through next Monday, that we're actually taking some time off. And so with that, it's like the day before vacation, right? It's hard to concentrate on things, even though we still have kind of a full work day. It's hard to concentrate on things. You're looking forward to the rest, and you're looking forward to just that time to more go inward with it all. And that's the other thing about it, is for us, one of the things that we do love to do is create content, right? We're constantly doing that between all of us at Reiki Lifestyle. All of us at Reiki Lifestyle, like, that is a part of our passion. It's a part of our heart intentions, that we share things that we hope are helpful to other people, or helpful to ourselves, what's going on in our real life. But there's also time for rest. There's also time for that kind of divine feminine energy of receiving, of going within. And the divine masculine is more about that, production, that producing, that doing. And so that's kind of where we're at today. Colleen, I saw you unmute, so I didn't know if you...
Well, I think it's also the reason I also like the topic of authenticity is also some of the comments that you've made in here, but it's also one of the things that I talk about a lot in teaching Reiki, because people, when they take a Reiki masterclass, and I've just recently taught a Reiki masterclass. We taught them in a masterclass in Karuna Reiki Master in Japan, and then a masterclass, and then an animal Reiki masterclass. And so when you take those classes, you actually are then receiving the training, so you can also teach Reiki. And one of the terms that goes around right now is imposter syndrome. And a lot of times people talk about feeling like they're not qualified to teach, they're not qualified to be a practitioner yet. And what I always like to share with people is that in my experience with having been a new teacher, it's been over 20 years now, but also seeing and supporting new people coming in to teach or to be practitioners, is just to be authentic. That Reiki orchestrates who meets up with who. So So the students who show up with you are meant to be with you. And in my experience, what people actually care about is that you are sincere and authentic and you bring your heart with you. The rest of it, we have, of course, have the manuals to support the information. We have outlines that support the manuals and the information and give you guidelines on, what topics you want to teach and things like that. And of course, I can answer a lot of questions because I've had a lot of experience, but your students aren't necessarily there for that. They are really there to receive the gift of Reiki, and they are there for you to share it with them authentically from your heart. One of the big questions I get a lot is, well, how do I explain Reiki to people? And ultimately, what I share is that each person really has to come up with your own authentic truth about how you explain it. We have some of the easy topics like, Reiki is a Japanese natural style of healing and stress reduction. So we have that easy one, for people that just want that, kind of elevator piece of it. But really, how you speak about it needs to come from you. How I speak about it comes from me. And Reiki itself, the energy itself takes you to your authentic self. It takes you to your authenticity and your personal inner truth. So how it comes through you, how it flows through you, either as a practitioner or as a teacher or on your personal level, it does not have to be like a professional level where you're teaching or being a practitioner. Maybe how do you talk about it with your family, or how do you talk about it with friends? And sometimes that can take a little while for you to kind of find your words. For me, a lot of it really depends on who I'm talking to. And I have differing groups that I speak with, from family members all the way to, my on a professional level. And so how I talk about Reiki in here, I would not talk about it in a medical setting. So in these settings, I'm very comfortable talking about the spirituality of it, my own personal experience of spirituality and working with spirit guides, and having a very, I would say, expanded, shall we put it this way, my authentic way of wording it is a very expanded view of my reality and the physical world and non-physical world that we live in. But if I'm in a medical setting, well, it's authentic for me to be aware of who I'm speaking to and the languaging it might be comfortable for them. That doesn't mean I'm not being authentic. It just means that there are so many ways to describe Reiki that it is absolutely appropriate to explain it in ways that, make sense to the person that you're speaking to. So that's part of it for me, is just being authentic. When I'm in one setting, in my classes, I kind of don't hold back at all. I say whatever comes through. And it's one of the fun things about being in class together and being in these kinds of groups and this kind of a community. We can say the things that we say, and it's normalized and okay, so we can talk about talking to the trees or the fairies that we met, or the angels in the clouds, or the personal experience of our aunt that just passed away, who showed up in the oil in my frying pan, and we can share those things. And then, of course, there's groups that, we're probably not going to share those things with, and or maybe we do anyway. and just know that they may kind of roll their eyes or give us a side eye at us. I've got to gotten comfortable with that too. But I am respectful when I'm in other settings that I know that, it would be more beneficial for the people that I'm talking to hear about Reiki in a much more generic term that would be comfortable for them and give them an opening understanding. Also knowing that Reiki will work with them their way. It doesn't have to be about my experience. Reiki will go to them and again go to their authentic truth and what it means for them. The same with religious discussions or spiritual discussions. What Reiki does is takes each person into their authentic truth, their inner truth, and what that means to them, because it's such a vast energy. It's a creation energy that, of course, it adapts to and works with each person and empowers them in their way. So, Robyn, I can see that you are.
Well, and Danny has her hand raised, but I just wanted to add to that real quick, is because we had somebody put in the chat, how about when people say, but I never imagined you as a Zen person? And I love what you just said, Colleen, because it's like I've received that one before, and I responded like backhanded compliment, right? But because Reiki really just reveals our authentic self. It doesn't mean that our authentic self is a Zen person, right? What we think of as a Zen person. And we might respond to stress or to conflict in a more Zen, heart-centered, compassionate way. But my personality, I don't think very many people would describe me as what we think of as a Zen person. I am can be loud and verbose and ambitious and, all of these different things that you may not equate with the Zen personality, but it doesn't mean that I don't respond to things from a heart-centered way, and not 100%, we're people, right? I accidentally raise my voice with my child and then have to apologize. And, there's these things that happen, but it doesn't mean that I don't try to live my life from a place of love and compassion, because Reiki meets us where we're at and helps us to reveal our authentic self and also love our own authentic self. And it's okay that I'm this way. And maybe throughout my life, I'll work to more of that Zen personality, or maybe I won't, and just to love me for who I am. And it's okay that I am not that personality. It also is a part of my authentic self, and it's moving more into like self-acceptance and also loving the parts of me that may be somewhat, loud and verbose. So
I bet you there's all kinds of Zen people that are loud and verbose.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's okay to be Zen and it's okay to be both. I think we have this concept of what it is, from like media and maybe even people we know that are that way, especially in these spaces. But that it also helps to reveal our authentic self in all of the different unique ways that is, and the makeup that we are. So go ahead, Danny.
I love all the comments in the chat.
I know. No, I've said this before on our podcast and stuff, but like Reiki Your Way is really important, because I started taking next step classes with Colleen and Robyn, 5 or 6 years ago. And I finally figured out I'm doing Reiki my way. So I work with Reiki every day. I'm doing admin for Colleen and Robyn. So every day I'm talking to people about Reiki. I'm explaining it. I'm signing up for classes. I talk about animal Reiki. So every day I love it. But it wasn't how I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be doing classes and everything. So it's just different than I thought it would be. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, it's authentic self. It's authenticity in the way that we're living our lives, our Reiki practices, our Reiki work maybe, and to just utilize Reiki to show up in a way that feels authentic to you. And I know for us, because we do have a community, that we also, it's important for us to be authentic within that too, because it is, again, this heart-centered practice that we love having. And in our classes, like you said, with our clients, like you said, Colleen, it is a part of what we also care about, is being authentic and genuine.
I
And
love
that's what
some of the
people,
things in the chat with Marge and talking about clear eloquence. I'm excited to kind of look into that, Marge, and with a chart there. And then also, Taylor, what you said, if you want to unmute and just talk a little bit about that too, with how it shows up in astrology. And if you're not prepared to do that, it's totally okay. Don't mean to
put her on the spot.
Yeah, come on,
It's
Taylor, just unmute.
6 a.m. in Hawaii.
I'm here. I'm awake. Yeah, it's 7 a.m. And what I see in the charts is phenomenal. It'll be like people have the exact same moon sign to the exact degree and minute and come together, or they're the various planets making harmonious aspects, making conjunct alignments. You see often too, there's the north node and the south node, and this is of the moon, a very important axis in the astrological chart that tells us more about like our past lives, where we've been, and also what is the path of our evolutionary growth and our soul intentions in this life. And oftentimes those are either exactly aligned or they are reversed, which means like there's, a real synergy there. It's either you're kind of on the same track, the same trajectory, or perhaps it's like you're perfect mirror reflections of each other. Like you are where that person has been in the past, or, is where they are headed. So it's really amazing. And you see this across the board, and other astrologers notice it for themselves and their clients as well. And yeah, since I incorporate Reiki with my astrology and, am constantly in the energy whenever I am sharing, I know that it's all being divinely orchestrated, and it's not something that can be planned, like it's so impossible. You could not plan this, or it's just, it's really, really divine. So there really is truly someone for everybody, and it's like these perfect fits kind of coming together, especially, the more myself, I just kind of let go and let the divine orchestration happen. It's just like that also allows it to happen, I think, better. So really, really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. That's interesting. Colleen and I have charts like that. Actually, it's funny that you say the two. We have some things that are exactly the same and some things that are opposite of each other, but work really well, or conjunct with each other, but work really well together.
Yeah, I figured as
Yeah,
much.
right.
Maybe I could have a look for the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And then Marge, I like what you wrote too, where you were in a collaborative training with somebody that it was challenging. And, that happens too. And sometimes it does take us into our authentic self. And so it doesn't mean it's always comfortable. And Reiki can help help you take it deeper into your own meaning. And like you say, it doesn't mean it's comfortable during it, but then afterwards it can really give you some reflection, which it sounds like it did, and actually even additional information to come through. And yes, that is another thing I really like about the kind of style that we work with Reiki, is the honoring of all lineages, the understanding that, you know, authenticity is different for each person, and how people practice Reiki can be very different. And I feel that people are guided to the communities that are a match for their authenticity, and some of the Reiki lineages are actually a lot more strict than we are, and you know, teach very structured, do things exactly this way, and this is how you do it, and if you're doing it correctly, this is how you're doing it, and very, very you know, much about the right ways to do Reiki. And in this lineage, we teach that there's a lot of right ways to do Reiki, and both ways work. The great part about Reiki is Reiki itself is the energy. The practices are the techniques we use to access the energy. The techniques that we use can vary in the different lineages. And of course, we can see a lot of commonalities of the techniques that we use that work. So, for instance, hand positions. And, you know, I've talked before about how my original Reiki training was, you do things exactly this way, that Mrs. Takata developed the foundation treatment. And we, you know, had a 3-minute chimer in our music that told us when to move, and you had to have your hands exactly perfectly this way. Or I was actually taught that it was incorrect if I was not doing it that way. So I learned that for 3 years before I found out that Usui Sensei practiced a very intuitive style of Reiki, and he determined his hand positions based on his intuition. Dr. Hayashi, who learned from Usui, was a medical doctor, and he based his hand positions on physical ailments that people presented with, illness they presented with, and the hand placements for the particular organs and anatomy that were a match for that ailment. And then Mrs. Takata developed the foundation hand placements so that people didn't have to have the intuition that Usui had or the medical knowledge Hayashi had. And it made sense. If you just use these hand positions, you know, then the whole body is covered, and it opened the door for everyone to be able to learn Reiki because you didn't have to have those other skills. Well, somewhere along the line, that got changed into do it exactly this way or it's incorrect. And then when the evidence-based history of Reiki was discovered, that Usui actually practiced very intuitively, that opened up the door further. But there are many people who really do very well with specific structures. And Reiki works, and I know it does, because I practiced with that 3-minute structure for 3 years prior to learning that I could use intuitive hand placements, which I still use those. It makes sense. You start at the top, you do these hand positions and go to the bottom. The difference is that if I want to use my intuition, I can. So, but my point with all of that, long way to get to it, is, shocker, is the point with that is that there are many people who feel very comfortable, like, here's exactly what you do, stay in this amount for this amount of time, this is how it works, and that works really well. And so there's not a right or a wrong way for us to develop our way. And as Danny was saying, you know, that's a lot of what we really teach is Reiki your way. And so there's lots of right ways to use Reiki and develop Reiki. But to me, what it does most of all is it takes you to your inner truth. Because we think of Reiki as a practice for others, but really for us, first and foremost, it's a personal practice that benefits us in our daily life and takes us to our inner truth. And for me, kind of navigating through the years of what is that? What is my inner truth, from my early religious upbringing to my later years of culturally created self with my beliefs and, what the expectations of, my generation were. And as a woman of my generation, what those expectations were. It's taken me time to really feel confident to also talk about my authentic truth out loud. I remember I wrote the article on Reiki and nature spirits maybe back in 2006 or 2007, and talks about how to talk to trees and fairies. And I was like, I cannot believe I'm putting this in print and people are going to read it. I mean, I was in agony over that. I did it anyway, but oh boy, it was like, I'm saying it out loud. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So, and now I can say it comfortably, although I do have discernment about where I talk about it in that way, so that, I'm comfortable. And that's also for my comfort as well as other people. And then also to kind of honor how people can understand the nature of Reiki, so that it, that they can be receptive to it. And then let the Reiki energy help them develop what it means to them, how they wrap their minds around it, what is authentic for them. I don't have to be the one who knows the answers, because I don't. I only know what it means for me. I also know that we have commonalities of practices and techniques that work, commonalities of experiences that we know work and benefit people, and the animals, of course, and the earth itself. But there's lots of, 7 billion people and 7 billion realities and 7 billion authenticities. And that's just people. The rest of the world, the bugs have a reality too. A fly has a reality, everything, a tree has a reality. So it's there's gazillion realities here. So I see you've unmuted, Robyn.
I kind of forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I was going to say that as Colleen's saying, what Reiki does is it helps you to reveal that within yourself, reveal that within your personal life. And then if you have a practice, a professional practice, or want to have a professional practice, showing up authentically gives other people permission to show up authentically. Like you said, with the imposter syndrome, just as an example, you can say that. I've had to deal with my imposter syndrome. I've had to heal that within myself. I've had to reveal that within myself, because that gives other people permission to go, oh, okay, good. It's not just me. It's not just me. I feel so much more in communion with other people. I feel communion. It allows myself, like when people give you permission to recognize that within yourself, that's when things start to heal around it, right? That's when it starts to heal within you. You're not, responsible for healing anybody else. You can just provide the Reiki so that they can heal themselves. But it also gives them permission to start recognizing that and sitting with that, and then healing it within themselves. And so that can be really helpful for people, is in that authenticity that gives other people permission. Like maybe they needed your voice today. Maybe they needed that one message that you wanted to share today that made all the difference for them in their day or in their life. That is a part of why the authenticity matters so much. And we're moving into a place now where everything it used to have to be that it was polished and professional. And we are moving into a place where, because I think of social media and that filtered reality that it can give to you, is that people are now moving into wanting to see the unfiltered reality. How are people actually feeling? How are people actually looking that day? Without all the face tuning, without all the things, you're seeing
Filters.
Huh?
Filters,
all the thing. It's not to say that we don't use those for ourselves. We do, because it can make us feel better and feel more comfortable. But that is a part of that pendulum swing where it went so filtered, so all of those things. And now it's kind of starting to swing back because people want to see that authenticity. They want to see you genuine, because it matters, because we're all people and we're all looking for that connection. We're all looking for ourselves to be able to show up authentically too. And so you never know, that moment might be the exact thing that they need to hear today, or the exact thing that helps them move into more of that feeling of being a part of something, of feeling maybe even less alone, of feeling a part of community, of feeling loved or feeling self-love. All of those things. And so that is a part of all of it. That's a part of, if you are in a business, that's a part of it too, that you can have the permission to do that. And that gives other people the permission to do that. And it's just this beautiful ripple effect. And Reiki helps support us in that practice. Reiki helps support in those moments where you're not feeling very genuine or authentic, or feeling like putting that out there, but, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Oh, I don't know. I don't have my makeup on today, or something like that. That those are the times where you can also call in Reiki to help you, support you in all of that.
Well, and Kaz, I see your hand too, but I just also want to bring up that, we've kind of been talking about how we express or engage with others, but it also is for you, for yourself. Because one of the things that ultimately I say, in all the years that I've been teaching Reiki, and all of the years that, we do the next step Reiki classes, we teach the, Reiki classes and Reiki for animals and all of those things. Ultimately, what I believe is that Reiki teaches you how to hear yourself. So when we talk about your authenticity and your inner truth, it's that you can hear that for you, like that you can be authentic with yourself. And that also took me a while to really get to that understanding, and kind of moving through some of those, again, culturally created self. And by that, I mean, how life is in, our culture, and family of origin, and, just expectations. And so to get to where you can actually hear your own voice, you can hear your own truth and your authentic self for you first. And then how you share that with the world is going to be individual. And I've learned that too, is that I get to share me in the world in my way. And the first thing is that I want my authentic self for me. And even now, even though I think I'm, like way better than that, or way better at that, I still have to kind of go into that regularly to be able to hear myself. And also sometimes to hear myself, to meet my own needs with my own authenticity. And because I'm often an outward thinking person, I naturally care about family, community, people, the earth, the animals, everything. So I have to actually sometimes really call that in so that I do get self-focused and I do listen to my authentic self for me and about it, and about me. So I like that idea too. So Kaz, I saw you had your hand raised. Did you want to unmute?
Yeah. Somebody once told me that I could never learn everything that everybody knows, and I could never make all the mistakes that everybody else makes. So with that, whatever you and Robyn and Danny and everybody else here, whatever they say, even if they say this much and you get this much, it's a benefit. Whichever way is going to go, it's still a benefit. Okay. And then again, maybe everybody else got that little snippet, So yeah, thanks for telling us whatever you want to tell us. Because it's all, it makes the world go around.
Thanks, Kaz. And the snippet that I heard, you won't believe it, from what you just said. Speaking of things that we say. So I heard the crows say, and we have a reality that we tell you about, and you can't ever know everything we know or the things that we know. And they popped in and said, here's your snippet.
And that's also why we do animal Reiki.
There it is. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
The crows popped in to say, here's the snippet from that.
A crow, no less.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. It's a good day.
Oh, it is. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for this discussion today, because it's so unusual for us to we looked at each other. I said, I'm kind of blank. Robyn goes, me too. And so we were thinking about, okay, what topics and what matters. Oh, and part of this, Dave, if you are actually here, so here's another authentic piece. Dave sent me an email this morning and said, talk about Reiki for insomnia. I was like, well, if I'm just being truthful, I am not a great sleeper. And for all the years I have worked with Reiki, what Reiki does for me when I can fall asleep, but I can't stay asleep, and I can be awake in the middle of the night for hours. What Reiki has done for me is I have it to not worry about the fact that I'm awake. And so that's, I had to just be authentic about that, I would have to look at other resources for that, because it hasn't really shifted my sleep patterns. Although I have to tell you, I woke up this morning and I had 7 hours of sleep, which is very unusual. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and most of the time I wake up awake. I'm not a slow waker upper. I wake up awake, and I could be literally on my computer within 10 minutes. So it's, and I don't always do that because I try to not make myself do that, but that's how my brain turns on. So in the middle of the night, I wake up awake. So just being authentic, I will listen around that for you, and maybe other people have some really good suggestions. So I thought what we would do is put that topic into our Q&A podcast. But for here, if I'm just being authentic, what Reiki does for me with sleep is keeps me stressed. I don't have stress around my sleep. It is what it is. And I don't know. I don't know if because I was raised that way. I wasn't raised in a household where you sleep in or anything. It was like you wake up and get up and go get your work done. So I don't know, but
And I'm the opposite. So,
and she's the opposite.
well, although I don't sleep that well anymore, but after having a child, but the concept of waking up awake, like I just don't like, that's totally alien to me. Like I'm like, you're like an alien. I don't get that. But many people are like that. So I just wanted to say that decisions, thank you, Emmy, decisions are very hard to make during a fixed grand cross astrologically. Could be an explanation for the blankness. And Taylor said yes. And I was like, yeah.
Time to pause and be present.
Yeah. So
just be authentic.
Which is really funny because when I was hearing about the invocation today, what came through was presence, just presence in the body and in right now. So that's really interesting. Yeah. Okay.
So for all of you, what we would just like to share with it is just take this time to let yourself be authentic. And again, I think it's the most important thing for me was I had to learn that I could share myself how I want to, and that I get to have discernment around that when I am working with Reiki and, in my Reiki, everything. Well, I work with Reiki all day, every day, not just professionally, but in my lifestyle. I believe that the energy of Reiki helps me get there. And again, one of the things that I do teach about it in the classes for any of you that are considering working with others at all is just bring your authenticity. That's really what people care about. And then Norma said way back in the chat that I really liked is that, that's when we started this group and community over 3 years ago, is we just wanted to have a place to come together and share Reiki. And we were able to be online during such an incredible time in our histories, and be community and share with each other. So thank you all again, always, for being here, and all of you showing up your way too.
Yeah. All of you showing up authentically and, just being a part of this community and all the things that you put into the chat with it all. We just really appreciate it because it also helps, it supports us doing that. We all support each other, and just a really, really beautiful community that we're always in such gratitude for. So.
And thank you for sharing that about the drumming too. I totally know what you mean. So here's one last thing I will leave you with. So speaking of this, so years ago, and I probably shared it here before, but years ago, I was presenting the gratitude ceremony at the International Reiki Retreat in New York. And I was so nervous. I was getting sick to my stomach. Like I was suffering. I was getting so much anxiety, and I still had a couple of days before my ceremony. And I had sent Reiki ahead of time. I was doing Reiki continually. And that's what brought this up, was the drumming idea. So Michael Baird had us out drumming under the full moon. And I mean, I'm just beating this drum and I'm up just praying like something help me with this anxiety. And I don't typically actually get like words, but this time it was words. And I actually heard the words and it said, "It's not about you. You're here to bring gratitude to the people. Just do the ceremony." And so that has been, out of anything, probably that has helped me understand that, and in my classes, is it's not about me. People are there to learn Reiki. None of it is about whether I'm nervous or anxious or anything else. It's all about, just showing up, being authentic, and let the Reiki energy do what it does, because it knows how to do what it does. So
yeah, I love that. And somebody said, remembering when your Q&As used to be on free conference calls. And that's the other thing about this too. Sometimes you just have to start. And that first step is always the hardest one. It's always the hardest one. But, it's okay to grow and change. And, if you put something on that you're like, later you just could delete it. Or as I like to say, you just embrace your cringe. So rather than trying to change your cringe, you just embrace your cringe, because Colleen and I, we very rarely go back and listen to the things that we do because we just die inside. So just so you know,
speaking of the cringe, like
speaking
I just
of
can't.
the cringe. And so it's okay though that, it's like, I'm not going to try to change my cringe. I'm going to embrace my cringe. So sometimes it's just about starting and the rest flows from there. So
And Christine, I love that. Yeah. Way back when, very first recording I did for Facebook, and Danny used to always be like, Colleen, you have to do some recordings on Facebook. And she would always support me with it. I did 42 takes with a teleprompter.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I remember years ago, and I was spending the night. I think we had a class the next day or something, so I was spending the night. And I woke up. I'm in my PJs, and Colleen's like she said, she's on her computer early. She's like, "Okay, come in. We're going to do Facebook Live." I mean, I just didn't have my stuff out of my eyes. I was just waking up, and I'm like, "Okay," and it was hilarious. We were not good. We laughed the whole time. And I think at that time, we had more people liking us. They're like, "Oh my God, it's so funny," right? Just being like, no makeup, just being like, we don't know what we're doing, but we're just here.
Well, even like our podcasts, we don't edit them. It is what it is. It's like, unless there would be something like really that needs to be edited, we just do it. So anyway, cringeworthy. Yes, thank you. Well, hey, we better, we didn't go into an invocation. So for those of you that need to get going, we'll go ahead and do just a quick preparations and invocation, and that will work for you that need to get going, and also for you that are going into the breakout room. So, so funny that we didn't have anything to say and talk for an hour.
you just got to love how it all works. It's just so divinely
Shocker.
orchestrated so much.
Thank you.
So, but thank you all for being here. Also, just a couple of announcements. We have classes in June. Colleen's teaching 1 and 2 master and Karuna classes. So we have that coming up in June. And then as always, we have our podcast, and that's distributed onto our podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, those. And then it's also on YouTube. So you can join either of those. If like you miss a day or something like that, you can go and check it out there. And just to update you, those, and then I'll stop talking, those that have been a part of this circle over the last few months, we have a web designer. So we did it. We're not there yet, but we made the decision. So I was talking about that last month, how it was just starting and seeing where it goes. And I'm loving the direction it has led us so far. So anyways.
And I just want to say a quick welcome, because we have some new people here, and also some people who were with us on Mount Karama that are just joining for the first time today too. And so glad you guys are here. So good. Everybody. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead. Yeah. Anytime, all of you know, then those of you that are new, it's always okay to join late and leave early. You can come and go as it works in your day and in your life anytime. So, all right.